Hey, it's Lee for On Your Marks Wrestling, and I'm here with a New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion review for June 8th, 2018. I watched this a little bit late. I kind of forgot that it was on Saturday, not Sunday. Quick note early on, I thought Don Callis was on point throughout this show. Just before I forget to mention it, he was great. Kevin Kelly's always good. And I'm going to lose track of stuff because I watched this in like 3 pieces. I couldn't sit through it because I had other things to do. So the New Japan Pro Wrestling president, Harold May, he's a new president, addresses the crowd, says that he has a dream of making New Japan Pro Wrestling go to the next level, kind of going international, things like that. Seems like a nice guy, whatever. I can't really tell much about him. So then we get a match of Yo and Sho of Roppongi 3K versus Desperado and Katamaru. Katamaru. What did I say? Kotomaru? Whatever, it's fine. There's an attempted sneak attack by the bad guys who are non-Roppongi 3K. But then there are tope con helos to the outside by Roppongi 3K. Looked really cool. Desperado accidentally Desperado's accidentally missed it by Katamaru. There's a last ride lung blower by Sho for a near fall. There's a ref distraction which leads to Katamaru getting a shot in on Sho, which leads into a kind of unique leg-based roll-up by Desperado, and they actually get the win. I should let you know, I cut these really short because the opening matches didn't seem to matter all that much, and I was trying to get through this as quickly as possible. I'm finding the more notes I write, the less I enjoy the show because I'm so distracted. So just know that there's more to these matches than I'm writing. Granted, not that much more, at least for the early ones. So then we get Juice Robinson and David Finlay versus Jay White and Yoshihashi. The match is largely forgettable, I wrote. Jay White snaps Saito suplex is cool. He does it pretty much every match, but it always looks good. The match ends with Juice hitting a switchblade with the Pump Fiction, I believe it's called, which is none prettier. Robinson poses with White's U.S. Championship afterwards. Callis kind of calls him out for doing that. It was fine. David Finlay says, if it's not me, I want it to be Robinson that wins that championship. Then we have Suzuki and Zack Sabre versus Ishii and Yano. There are dual submissions by Suzuki and Sabre on Yano at one point. Ishii and Suzuki have that usual tough guy spot with the forearms. This one went a little extra long, and it ended with a double KO essentially. At one point, Sabre is about to get low blowed by Yano, but he squeezes his knees together and captures Yano's arm, and he converts it into a submission, and he actually gets the win that way. After the match, Ishii attacks Suzuki, and a slap fight breaks out, but it's like a violent slap fight. It was loud. Could not be pleasant to be slapped that hard. So, kind of setting up another of these matches. New Japan Pro Wrestling has a couple things that they do all the time. Every wrestling promotion has it, but the New Japan, you notice it more when you've just recently watched something. New Japan has forearm tough guy spots where it's just, I'm going to forearm you, you forearm me, and we'll do this for 2 minutes, and then one of us will get the advantage, but the other one will come back. It's fine. It's fine a few times, but when these guys do it for like literally 2 minutes straight of forearms and everybody else does it for like 30 to 45 seconds, it just gets a little old. Throwing a guy into the barricade back first too, very common. So anyway, that's just a little side note. We get the next match. It's a 3-way match between Taichi, Michael Elgin, and Goto. There's a tope con hilo by Elgin to both opponents, which was very impressive. Elgin has lost a ton of weight, and they mentioned it a lot on the commentary, which they should. But he's moving really well. He always moved well, but he's looking quite a bit thinner. There's a sunset flip powerbomb by Elgin and he does it onto Goto, who was doing a superplex onto Tai Chi, so it's basically like a Tower of Doom, but initiated with a Sunset Flip powerbomb from the side, which was really cool looking. There's a Yushiguroshi and strike to the back of the head into the knee by Goto for a near fall. Tai Chi rolls. What did I write? Oh yeah, he rolls in his valet. I forget what her name is, but he rolls in his valet and uses the distraction to use his mic stand on the two opponents. He hits a really nice super kick on Goto and only gets a near fall. Then Elgin buckle bombs Tai Chi and then buckle bombs him a second time into Goto. And then he hits a sit-up power bomb on Tai Chi, and he actually gets the victory, and he becomes the new Neverweight Open champion, I believe. This night was full of title changes, so it was interesting. So next we have a tag team championship match between Sonata and Evil and Nick and Matt Jackson of the Bucks. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes a ton, and they're very hard to read because I wrote in pencil because I've run out of pens. There's a step-up slingshot twisting tope to the outside by Nick Jackson. I don't know how to describe it, but that's as close as I can get. At one point, he hurts his leg by kicking the post accidentally, and that becomes a big story of the match. Matt's back is not as much of a story, but still is. They fail to hit a Meltzer driver because Evil manages to catch Nick's feet and kind of pull him off the mat. There's another Meltzer driver attempt that fails because Nick's foot is not good enough to springboard. He falls. Evil and Sonata hit a Meltzer driver of their own, but they only get a near fall. They also hit a Magic Killer and also get a near fall out of that. Then Sonata puts a Dragon Sleeper on, I think it's Matt, and then he starts spinning with it, but then he tries to hit a moonsault and misses. The Bucks escape together they escape Everything is Evil, which I believe is just is it STO, where they just kind of spike a person. Eventually, the Bucks hit more bang for your buck, which is just a series of moves. So all of a sudden, Nick's ankle is okay, even though he was still selling it after. And they become the new champions as a result of that. So they get the pin out of it. Kind of neat. Interesting that they become the champions. So that's the second title change of the night. The next match is 3 legends versus 3 guys from the Bullet Club. So you have Rey Mysterio Jr., Jushin Thunder Liger, and Hiroshi Tanahashi versus, Marty Scurll, Hangman Page, and Cody. My eyelid literally stuck to my eye there. There's a bit of a build-up to Liger getting his hands on Scurll. They were the big feud coming out of the Best of the Super Juniors. Liger manages to get him in the ring, and he gets the Romero special on him, which Scurll had been unsuccessful at doing to any of his opponents. I wrote Bullet Club with quick tags, kind of keep the advantage after a while. I also wrote that Mysterio is moving really, really well for a guy of his age, especially against Scurll. There's a double 619 at one point. There's a top rope Frankensteiner by Liger onto Cody, and he goes for the brainbuster, but Cody manages to reverse it into his crossroads and gets the win for his team. So basically, the Legends dominated most of this match, but at the end of the day, the Bullet Club wins. Then we have Hiromu Takahashi versus Will Ospreay. This is for the I forget what it's called, light heavyweight, super junior heavyweight. I can't remember what it's called. Whatever. Ospreay is the champion. There's going to be a lot of things. At this point, I was like, I'm not writing many notes, but in this, I knew there'd be big moves, so I prepped my hand, did a lot of exercises, a lot of this, stretched out, and I will read a lot of stuff to you. So Ospreay, at one point, goes on the ramp, and he runs very fast, and he hits a tope con hilo on Hiromu. Very impressive. And then I wrote that Hiromu has the best missile dropkick in wrestling. Granted, Okada hit some pretty good ones later on in the night. There's a pop-up powerbomb by Hiromu for a near fall. There's a tumbling moonsault to the outside by Ospreay. It has a name, I can't remember it. It's just so impressive. Ospreay attempts an Os cutter, but it gets converted right away into a German suplex. There's a really amazing exchange of kicks and dodges of kicks and roll throughs on Ranas, and then Ranas that hit. But it all leads to a Stormbreaker attempt by Ospreay, but it's countered by Hiromu into a Code Red, or looked like a Canadian Destroyer type thing. I don't know what the difference is between the two, but Code Red, Canadian Destroyer, both cool moves. There's a Superplex, a Shooting Star on a draped Hiromu, and a Twisting Senton by Ospreay for a near fall. He hits that combo fairly regularly from what I've gathered, and never gets the win, but it's always impressive. Hiromu hits a second rope Canadian Destroyer into a triangle choke. So basically hits the Destroyer and then just yanks him down into the choke. Ospreay eventually powers out with a kind of sick-looking slam on Hiromu's neck. So initially he tries a regular slam. Doesn't work, so then he picks him up and kind of flips him over. It's almost like a body slam, or Death Valley Driver body slam kind of combo. But it looked like it landed right on his neck. It looked rough. Hiromu hits his sunset flip to the outside onto exposed concrete, but you kind of see that Ospreay doesn't really hit the concrete, so didn't have as much of an effect as it probably could have dramatically. There's a, what is it called, Dynamite Plunge or something like that by Hiromu. It's his non-finisher that looks a lot like a finisher. He gets a near fall out of it. Ospreay with a series of kicks. He goes for the Stormbreaker again. I think it's called Stormbreaker. But it's all countered into a triangle choke again. Doesn't go through, but then Hiromu manages to hit a butterfly pile driver, which looked really good, a turnbuckle Death Valley Driver in the corner, and a time bomb, and he gets the win. So he hits like 3 moves in a row. Clean win. Really entertaining match. Lots of action. Fast. Exactly what you'd want out of those two guys. I enjoyed it very much. I would say, in terms of must-watches, there were 2 3/4 must-watches here, and that was one of the must-watches. Let's just say 3. So the last 3 matches are pretty much must-watches. So you have Jericho versus Naito next. Jericho comes in looking clearly like the heel. He's got some paint on his eyes. It looks weird. Before the bell even occurs, Jericho attacks. He ends up powerbombing Naito through a table. He also plants Naito with a DDT on top of a table. And then he hits the match finally starts officially. He hits a lion salt and gets a near fall out of it. He puts the walls of Jericho on Naito. It's broken up right away, though. Eventually, Naito spits in Jericho's face, which is one of his moves. He does his slingshot dropkick to Jericho, who's on the ground. And he does 2 neck breakers to Jericho. So one on the apron, one onto the floor. And that kind of evens things out a little bit. He finally gets into his ring gear. So Naito's doing all this stuff in his full kind of suit that he comes out in. You see that Naito's eye is bleeding. It was bleeding fairly early on, kind of around the table spot. Don't know exactly what happened, but it seemed like it was his lower eyelid. He ends up using a piece of broken table to hit Jericho over the head with it a couple times. So this match was mostly a brawl for a lot of it. There was some decent wrestling at the end, but it was mostly a brawl. There's a pile driver onto a table by Naito, so he kind of retaliates. The same table that Jericho had hit him with the DDT on. There's an attempted top rope Rana by Naito that Jericho just kind of holds onto him, jumps down, and he puts him in the walls of Jericho instead. It was kind of a cool transition. There's another walls of Jericho applied, and this time Naito's selling it. He's like almost passed out, but then he wakes up and kind of walks a little bit, then almost passes out again. He's really close to the rope, but wakes up and grabs the rope. It was pretty good. Naito hits Destino, but the eye kind of distracts him for a second. He kind of picks out his eye, and then he goes for the pin, and Jericho manages to grab the rope on 3, or before 3, I guess. Naito's cheek is also cut. If we make that note. There's a code breaker on a springboarding Naito, so Naito jumps off the second rope and kind of jumps back towards Jericho, and Jericho just hits him with a code breaker. It looked cool. I think he hits a move called Gloria, Naito does. I think it's one of his setup moves. And then he tries Destino, but Jericho pushes the ref, which distracts him, and Jericho lands on his feet, low blows Naito, and hits a codebreaker and gets the win. So Jericho becomes the Intercontinental Champion. Naito afterwards is hit by multiple belts. So he's hit by, first of all, the championship belt by Jericho, and then Jericho pulls out his own leather belt for his I almost said uniform, costume, whatever, get up, and he starts whipping him. Evil comes in for the save, and that's kind of the end of that. Then we get the main event of the evening, and I could have written way more notes for the main event, but I didn't want to be here for 3 hours. So it's Okada versus Omega. It's the rubber match. There's kind of a weird opening intro for Omega where he says that he's given up everything, including the Bullet Club, in order to be in this match and things like that, and you see him talking to Ibushi. Both competitors go to the outside at one point. It's hard to explain what happened, but like Omega is on attacks. It's hard to explain. They both end up on the outside. Omega hits a V trigger there onto Okada, who is running towards him, trying to go for like a cross body, and he just hits a V trigger. It looked really brutal. There's a springboard splash over the barricade by Omega at one point, so it basically kind of goes off the top rope over the barricade onto Okada, who's kind of among the crowd. There's another V trigger by Omega. He also does this crusher move where he jumps over a guy and kind of almost bulldogs him. Did that first. There's a tombstone by Okada on the apron. Okada missile dropkicks Omega into the railing. It looked really cool. There's also a missile dropkick from the top rope to a kneeling Omega, and that looked really brutal. Gets a near fall out of that. Omega hits a con hilo to Okada, who's in front of the ramp. It's kind of a standard move. Looked good. Both guys land a lot of huge moves. Like this, the first fall went a really long time. Both guys land a lot of their secondary moves, but the story seems to be that they never hit their finisher. So there were multiple attempts at doing the one-winged angel, never hit. Multiple attempts at doing the Rainmaker, never actually hits. Eventually, Omega counters a Rainmaker, and he tries to pull a move, but he gets stacked up by Okada and actually gets stacked up for the 3 count. So the first fall goes to Okada. Next we have a stop. Well, there's a lot of stuff that happens, but at one point Okada is on the ground. He's got a table draped over him, and Omega stomps on it, basically like a coup de grace kind of deal. Look cool. Omega lands a beautiful butterfly pile driver. It's the second time we see it this evening, and it looked cool. A V trigger and a one-winged angel, and he actually gets the fall number 2. So basically it becomes 1 versus 1-1, so it's a tiebreaker. We have Okada hitting a Rainmaker, but it takes him too long to get the pin. So he only gets 2 out of it. Omega hits a Styles Clash, which was interesting, but doesn't get the pin out of it. There's a point where Omega attempts a Phoenix Splash after talking to Ibushi outside, but he misses it. There's a Rainmaker attempt by Okada, but he just doesn't have enough energy, and Omega doesn't even fall as a result of it. It was kind of an interesting spot, but eventually, despite the lack of energy, Okada manages to land 2 Rainmakers, never getting the pin in, and when he attempts his third one, it fails. There's a one-winged angel by Omega, and doesn't get the win either. The match is kind of just the 2 guys being almost on the verge of death. Omega is clearly the guy with a little bit more energy. He ends up hitting a really, really good-looking V-trigger and then a one-winged angel. And Okada doesn't kick out, so that is the win. This match went a little over an hour. And I would say, other than the first maybe 6 to 10 minutes, it was all action. These guys really did a lot of stuff. It was crazy. So I didn't write everything down. I would have had 3 pages of notes. After the match, the Bucks come down, and there's a group hug with them and Ibushi and Omega. And then Omega cuts a kind of post-match promo talking them up as champions and himself up as champion, and talking about Ibushi being a handsome guy. And then Cody comes out, and you think he might come down to the ring or might do something with the mic, but he just kind of turns back, still suggesting that he might be the next opponent, but not going too far with it. Overall, this was basically 3 really good matches and a bunch of kind of matches. Actually, you know what? The Bucks match was pretty good. I actually like seeing Rey Mysterio moving pretty well. The first 3 matches or so were kind of rough, but everything else kind of fell into place. This was a good show. The final match, I don't know if Dave Meltzer is going to give it like 19 stars. I don't know what his ratings are. Certainly, it seems like it would be a max grade kind of match. Jericho versus Naito was more of a brawl, but Jericho did a good job on that. I have no problem with that match. Ospreay and Takahashi, Hiromu Takahashi, lots of fun to watch. Every single title changed hands from the looks of things. Maybe I missed something, but it looks like every single title changed hands. WWE hasn't changed the title in forever, it seems, so that's a relief too. I'm going to go ahead and give this a grade of, I'm going to say 8.5 out of 10. It felt a little long. It always feels a little long. New Japan should shorten this stuff by about an hour. But that final match was great, and the other matches didn't really let down, so 8.5 out of 10, I think that's pretty fair, and definitely lots of matches that are worth watching on here. So if you haven't watched them, go ahead and find them online. Alright, thanks for watching.